You're not irritated because people are cruel. You're irritated because their words still matter. That offhand comment, it burns. That cold glance, it tears at something inside you that's still unfinished. Be honest. How many times have you replayed a simple interaction in your mind like a personal attack? How many days have you lost to someone else's mood, someone else's silence, someone else's indifference? You keep telling yourself you're strong, that you don't care. But the truth is, you do. It's not their fault, it's yours. Not in a shameful way, but in a wake-up kind of way. Because you've given them access to your peace. They push a button and you explode. But what if the problem isn't that they pushed, it's that the button still exists? You're here because deep down, you're tired. Tired of being hijacked by every comment, every tone, every absence. And now, it's time to face the part of you that still needs the world to behave for you to be okay. Because until you kill that part, they will always control you. You keep telling yourself to stay calm. You promise that next time you won't let it get to you. But then someone cuts you off mid-sentence, or forgets to reply, or speaks to you with that dismissive tone, and suddenly it's happening again. Your chest tightens, your thoughts spiral, and you feel like you're losing control. It's not that you want to overreact, it's that part of you still needs to. That emotional trigger wasn't planted yesterday, it's been there for years, built by small wounds, silent expectations, and unspoken fears. You're not reacting to them, you're reacting to an internal narrative. I'm not seen, I'm not respected, I'm not enough. And every time someone brushes against that nerve, your mind lights up like it's under attack. But the truth is, you're not under attack, you're under the influence of your own story. Philosopher Alain de Botton once said, "We don't really get angry at people, we get angry at our hope that they might treat us better." That's the wound, that's the reason. You still hope, you still want, you still expect. And as long as that remains unexamined, you'll keep handing your peace to anyone with an attitude. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. He was rejected, betrayed, humiliated, but instead of clinging to victimhood, he turned inward. He dissected his pain with terrifying precision and discovered a bitter truth. Freedom doesn't come from changing the world, it comes from changing how you interpret it. He wrote, "Man is nothing but what he makes of himself." That means the pain, the rage, the disappointment, they're not evidence of how cruel the world is. They're signs that you've handed control of your inner state to things beyond your command. The cage, it's built from your need to be understood, your fear of not mattering, your longing to be approved. Break those and the walls fall. Not outside, inside. There's a moment, just a breath, between what happens and what you do next. And in that space, most people lose themselves. They flinch, snap, defend, collapse. Not because they choose to, but because they've never learned to pause. Reactivity isn't strength, it's a wound dressed in urgency. And if you don't learn to recognize that instant, the sacred pause, you'll live your whole life as a puppet, twitching at every tug of someone else's tone, someone else's face, someone else's silence. This is where the shift begins. Not in suppression, but in observation. When someone speaks to you with arrogance, don't fight it, watch it. Feel the heat rise in your chest, but don't let it overflow. Become the witness of your own storm. The moment you stop reacting and start observing, you stop playing their game. You take the remote back, you turn chaos into clarity. This isn't about pretending you're fine, It's about becoming so grounded that no one else gets to dictate your emotional weather. You don't suppress the reaction, you rise above the need to have one. There's a difference between burying emotion and transforming it. One will rot inside you, the other will remake you. Most people don't understand this. They think self-control means silence, biting your tongue, clenching your jaw, pretending it didn't hurt. But silence without transformation is just a ticking bomb. The emotion is still there, boiling under the surface, waiting for the next excuse to erupt. Nietzsche didn't want us to bottle up our rage. He wanted us to use it, to melt it down and reshape it into something higher. Anger, irritation, frustration, these aren't signs that you've failed. They're raw energy, and raw energy can either burn you or fuel you. The choice is yours. What makes you angry might be the very thing that can make you powerful if you stop running from it. The key isn't to deny the flame. The key is to hold it without getting burned, feel it, name it. Then ask, what is this trying to show me about myself? That shift from victim to alchemist is everything. You're not here to be ruled by your emotions. You're here to turn them into something unshakable, something untouchable, something real. It's wild how much power we give to people who barely know us. A delayed reply, a passive-aggressive tone, a half-hearted compliment, and suddenly your sense of self starts to collapse. Why? Because you still believe your worth is something handed to you, not something you carry. You've built your identity like a house of mirrors, stable only if others reflect back what you want to see. And so, without realizing it, you start performing. Every word is calculated, every silence rehearsed. You adjust your tone to sound agreeable, you smile to hide the storm, you shape-shift to be liked. But it's not authenticity, it's survival theater. And it's exhausting. You're not living your truth, you're reacting to a crowd that's always watching, always demanding, and never truly caring. The worst part? You've been playing the role so long, you've forgotten who you are when no one's looking. Nietzsche saw this hunger as one of the greatest traps. He wrote, "The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently." In other words, needing to be validated by others keeps you dependent, and dependency is weakness dressed as politeness. You don't need their praise. You don't need their attention. You need to become the kind of person who can walk into a room and not shrink even if no one notices, because the one who doesn't need to be seen becomes impossible to ignore. This is not arrogance. This is sovereignty. And once you taste it, begging for recognition will feel like chains you'll never wear again. Most people spend their lives resisting what already is. They argue with reality, curse timing, fight the past, and label every inconvenience as unfair. But what if the problem isn't what happened? What if it's your refusal to accept that it had to happen? That's where suffering is born, in the rejection of the moment. You think peace will come when life stops being difficult. But Nietzsche offered something far more powerful. He said, "Don't just accept your fate, love it, all of it, even the parts that hurt." Amor fati means you stop treating pain like a mistake and start treating it like a sculptor, chipping away everything you're not. You stop seeing setbacks as punishments and start seeing them as preparations. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the rejection, none of it was random, it was required. And the moment you stop resisting, you become untouchable. As Nietzsche put it, I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things. That is amor fati, not passive acceptance, but fierce alignment. The fire doesn't burn you anymore, it builds you. And once you love the fire, no storm, no loss, no silence can take you down, because now you've made peace with all of it. Nietzsche knew this inner war. He didn't see enemies in the outside world. He saw them inside the self. That's why he wrote, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster." That monster isn't always rage or hatred. Sometimes it's the subtle bitterness we carry for years, the quiet blame we place on others to avoid owning our own growth. The true battlefield isn't between you and the world, it's between who you are and who you're still afraid to become. And once you see that, everything changes, because now you're not at war with them. You're in a process with yourself, and that's the only fight worth showing up for. There's a version of you that flinches every time someone doesn't smile back. That overthinks every silence, every ignored message, every offhand comment. That version isn't who you are. It's who you learned to be to survive. And maybe it served you once. Maybe it kept you safe, kept you liked, kept you accepted. But now it's the chain wrapped around your throat. That version of you is fragile, hyper-aware, constantly scanning for signs of rejection, addicted to being understood. And if you want peace, if you want true freedom, then that self has to die. We're not talking about killing your emotions, we're talking about killing the need to be emotionally rescued by others. The part of you that demands fairness, validation, apologies, burn it. Simone de Beauvoir once said, "Change your life today, don't gamble on the future, act now without delay." This is that moment. To stop defending a version of you that can't hold its own power. To stop waiting for the world to be gentle enough so you don't fall apart. Nietzsche called the higher man not someone who dominates others, but someone who no longer needs the world to bow before his pain. Burn the fragile self, not to become cold, but to become whole. But here's the truth, no one tells you. The only way to win their game is to stop playing. Walk off the stage, take the mask off. Say what you mean, feel what you feel. Exist without asking for permission, and every time you contort yourself for the sake of approval, you chip away at your own becoming. The people who truly live don't play roles. They speak from their center. They move without needing applause. When you stop needing to impress, you become impossible to manipulate. That's when your peace stops being conditional. That's when you stop being a puppet and start becoming a force. Become the witness of your own storm. Try this, just for a week. 7 days, not forever. Just long enough to prove to yourself that you are not owned by your triggers. For the next 7 days, no reacting. Not to the cold stare, not to the ignored text, not to the sarcastic jab or the manipulative silence. Just watch. Feel the emotion rise, but let it pass like weather. You're not made of rain. You are the sky behind it. This isn't suppression. This is transformation. It's a training ground for your future self, the one who doesn't get dragged into every emotional ditch someone else digs. Søren Kierkegaard once said, "People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought, which they seldom use." But here's your chance to do both. Free yourself from reacting out of habit and reclaim the power to choose your response. Most people are nothing but a sum of their reactions, angry because someone was short with them, bitter because someone forgot them. Don't be most people, be the exception. Every time you choose stillness over chaos this week, you are taking back territory in your own mind. And by day 7, you'll understand, silence isn't weakness, it's the sound of mastery. Most people mistake movement for freedom. They think it's saying whatever you want, going wherever you please, doing whatever feels good in the moment. But that's not freedom, it's distraction. Real freedom is standing in the middle of chaos and not needing to match its volume. It's someone throwing shade and you don't even blink. It's someone trying to provoke you and your peace doesn't flinch. Not because you've gone numb, but because you've become whole. You've stopped outsourcing your stability, because here's the shift. When you stop letting external chaos define your internal state, you're not a ship tossed by waves, you're the anchor. Stillness isn't the absence of storms, it's the refusal to be moved by them. And once you find that stillness, no one's silence, no one's drama, no one's disapproval can shake you from it. This kind of freedom is quiet. It's not loud or boastful. It doesn't need to be seen. It just is. A stillness so powerful it doesn't shout. It simply doesn't move. And in that stillness, you finally come home to yourself. Look around you. Really look. How many people do you see living like leaves in the wind, tossed around by every opinion, every mood swing, every passing comment? One moment they're laughing, the next they're spiraling. Not because life is cruel, but because they've never rooted themselves. They're dependent on emotional weather forecasts they can't control. And when that's your default, peace is never more than one wrong word away from vanishing. But you're not a leaf. You never were. You've just forgotten you have roots. You've forgotten that your center isn't something others give you. It's something you build. Slowly. Intentionally. With every choice to stay grounded when the storm rages. Viktor Frankl once wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." That's what this is. A challenge. To stop being blown around and start being the tree. Steady, deep, alive, but unshaken. So I'm going to leave you with this. Aim to be unbothered. It's not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming unshakable. You weren't born to beg for peace, you were built to embody it. And remember, the loudest strength is silence. You don't need to prove anything. Just become someone that no longer needs to be provoked to feel powerful. That's how you stop being annoyed by everyone forever. You've given enough of your peace to the world. Now it's time to reclaim it, quietly, completely, without needing anyone's permission. Watch the next video that speaks to the part of you ready to rise. And thank you for being a part of Mosaic Mind.